Alrighty guys, today we got a special lens, and this is the APSC 27mm f2.8. It is a street photography lens, or a pancake lens of sort. It's for the Sony E-mount, and it is an APS-C lens. And I've been using it for a couple of weeks now, and I want to share my thoughts on this lens. I had a lot of fun with this lens. To be honest with you guys, I get a lot of enjoyment in shooting with these types of Chinese lenses because I have zero expectations for them. And when I do start to use them a bit, I am pleasantly surprised by how it turned out. I'm also amazed by how tiny this lens is. This lens makes the camera quite discreet and travel friendly, and that is a pro for someone like me. You also have the USB-C port on the side of the lens for firmware updates. 7artisans provided a rubbery insert cap so that the USB-C port isn't exposed when you're out shooting. And I think this is a nice touch because the other day I was out shooting with this lens, and we were in an area where there was a lot of dust and a lot of sand and dirt. And so you can only imagine if there was no rubber cap, or whatever this thing is called, that the sand and dirt would have gone inside into the USB-C port. The rubber insert is a good addition. The manual focusing ring has a good resistance to it as well. I tried it out a couple of times, and it's better than I was expecting it to be, which is great. And also, their lens cap. I've been complaining about third-party companies and their lens caps for quite some time now, and I was expecting it to be the same with this lens as well. I was expecting the lens cap to be a little bit loosey-goosey and fall all over the place, but they actually made this one secure, so I appreciate that. So I guess some of my complaints did work. I'm not too sure, because every time, man, it's always something wrong with the lens cap. So I'm glad that this one is more secure than the ones in the past. Let's talk about the autofocusing. The autofocusing on this lens is all right. And for this, I wasn't expecting it to be great. And I believe this was where they were going to compromise some stuff, since it is a $129 lens. I was testing this lens with my Sony a7C II. So your mileage may vary depending on what camera you have. When there's a human subject and that human subject is standing still, for the most part, it will nail the eye no problem. It's when you start tracking the subject is where we run into problems. So I told my wife. For single point autofocusing, there's also the occasional hunting that it does sometimes, from time to time, especially around minimum focusing distance, which is at 30 centimeters, by the way. But I find that it hunts and then it moves backward and forwards before acquiring focus. Not a big deal, since this is only $129. You can't expect everything to be good. So for now, the autofocusing could be better, so I'm hoping they can address some of this stuff in a future firmware update. Let's talk about the image quality. I find the lens to be quite good for the price. It is surprisingly sharp at f2.8. I was reviewing some of the shots that I took, and I was like, what the frick is going on? It surprised me, to be honest with you. There is a heavy vignetting at f2.8, but once you stop it down to like f5.6, it clears up. Speaking of f5.6, I find that's where the optimal lens sharpness to be at its best. Anything higher, you're going to suffer from the diffraction. I also found the bokeh to have a unique look. There's an interesting character to them that I find decent. Again, this is subjective. Sometimes the bokeh balls are in like hexagon shapes, and sometimes the bokeh is in football shapes, the cat eyes. But they are never fully round. So if you guys care about your balls to be round, this lens is not it for you. The flares is something you should watch out for, because it does washes out your image. Sometimes you can use the flare to your advantage, but more times than not, it looks undesirable. And I wish that 7artisans provided us with a lens hood for this lens. And whenever there's a flare, I noticed that this lens autofocusing doesn't perform as well. So you have to be mindful of where you are pointing that thing. But overall, I am pleasantly surprised by this lens. During my time with it, it's been quite entertaining, to say the least. I had fun shooting with this lens. This lens is going to complement the APS-C Sony cameras very well, and it's going to look even stealthier on my Sony a7C II. This is not a bad lens to get started with if you're someone that is on a very tight budget, someone who just is getting started, and this is for someone that doesn't want a huge commitment. So if you're interested, try this lens out. It's a street photography lens, it's a discreet lens, it's great for, again, travel, documentary work, street photography stuff, and some portraits as well. And honestly, I am loving the budget-friendly autofocusing options that are coming out from 7artisans, and I can't wait to see what they come up with next. I would love to see how this lens performs on my Fujifilm X-T5 though, so 7artisans, if you're watching this, hopefully there would be an X mount version coming out very soon. And if you want some more information about this lens, I'll leave the links down in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. And thanks so much.